Hello, my name's Lorene. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. This is the end of the November nonfiction event, and I've really enjoyed myself. I've had some good books amongst the two that I really didn't like. And one of these has been Blues, Legacies, and Black Feminism by Angela Y. Davies. And I have really enjoyed this. I'm about one chapter from the ending. And the character that we haven't really encountered before is Billie Holiday, and I'm really looking forward to finding out about her. The two other blues singers that are referenced over and over are Gertrude Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith, and as we get further into the book, we're starting to come across some other female blues singers and their role in the building momentum of women blues singers in the 1920s. One of the positions that was put forward by earlier researchers was that the blues weren't actually a protest or a protest genre, or they were mostly about just accepting what was a Black person's lot in life. And so, in fact, the blues, I'm just looking for there it is. The blues were an expression of, yeah, it kind of sucks, but this is what we can expect, and so we best make the most of it. And the critique that Angela Davies brings to this argument is that those researchers were primarily white men in positions of power who really didn't understand racism very deeply and could not really see beyond the position of their research questions, and didn't really want to see signs of protest because that would just be, well, it would be undermine their thesis position, but secondarily they would have to look a little bit closer at the society in which both the blues happened and the society in which the research is happening. So there's a lot of blindness happening in earlier explorations of the lyrics and these singers. What Angela Davies is pointing out is that a lot of the lyrics are strongly protesting not only the plight of a Black person against or within a white society, but also what that means inside of their own community, in that you've got disenfranchised men who are acting inappropriately towards women and taking advantage of women. So we've got songs about prostitution, being abused, having their money stolen, having the landlord demand sex in return for rent money, just all these kinds of things that were an everyday part of the Black community, and not just necessarily the lower class Black people, but these are things that women in the middle class of where it existed in Black society also had to encounter. It also takes a look at the fact that most of the women who were colored were in positions of servitude. And so, having to wash the socks of your white family is not actually a very enriching life experience. And so when you look deeper and you look at the context and stuff, then you start to realize that the lyrics of both Gertrude Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith are really, in fact, quite powerful and quite jarring. And two things are happening, of course, is that the audience listening, both male and female, is able to read between the lines. But the second thing, and I think the most important thing really through all of the stories that Angela is kind of pulling apart and repositioning for us, is that censorship was a huge amount of the story for these singers, both male and female singers. But the recording industry did not want to be recording protest songs. They did not want to have songs in their label that would be upsetting to the white folks who paid more money for things and were their advertisers and so forth. So if anyone had taken a live recording of one of these song mistresses, they would have had quite a different recording with quite different lyrics, and the rhythms might have changed as well. We've got a few researchers who could only see the blues music in terms of its musical notes and where they arise and where the syncopations are and so on. And then you've got other people who see the blues in terms of the lyrics. But if you were in a live performance, you wouldn't be getting this sort of crafted presentation. It would be a lot more raw, a lot more spontaneous. It would be a bit more judged on, what kind of audience did you have? Did you have an audience that was primarily made up of people who were street engaged, or did you have an audience that were paying tickets to a concert hall? I think the singers were much more flexible in what they were able to bring to the stage. So I really enjoyed this book. It is biography, not memoir. And Angela Davies is just such a good researcher, and she really brings. I've said before that her sentences are not easy sentences. Like if you struggle with multiple long words, many syllables, several which encapsulate many ideas in one single sentence, it can be a bit of a struggle. Every once in a while, if I was tired or what have you, then this was not the book to be reading. But she makes it so accessible to the average reader, and by using examples along the way, if you don't quite get the paragraph, you get the example, and then there's a summary, so that you get a couple of opportunities to get the idea that is being presented. I have seen across, somehow, I don't know where I saw it, but she has a book coming out. I think it is Do We Need Prisons? I'm not positive about that. I'm sort of 50-50 on whether I'm going to go after that, because I suspect it's an American perspective, but maybe that's okay. I guess the American perspective certainly informs our own prison systems, and God love us, I would absolutely hate to have the American prison system in our land. But the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was my fiction in Nonfiction November. And I read I read more than 2 books. A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow is the second in the Fractured Fables series, where we have got Zinnia Gray, who's suffering from some sort of really peculiar, obscure protein disease, traveling back through to the story of Sleeping Beauty, and she's decided that it's her role in life to rescue Sleeping Beauty. She's taken her thesis on folklore and gone back into these different what's that word? Versions of Sleeping Beauty. So wherever Sleeping Beauty has been used as the theme for an opera or science fiction or comics or graphic novels or whatever, wherever the story has been told, and even going back in time to when before they got all tidied up, she's going back and rescuing Sleeping Beauty. In this book, what we encounter is the Queen. And she starts to realize that, not everybody has agency. Maybe Sleeping Beauty didn't have agency in her plot, but neither does the Queen. The Queen never has a name. And why is the Queen so miserable? And what is it that puts her in conflict with Snow White, who's really nothing more than a child at the time of most of the stories? So in this book, we encounter the second part of Zinnia Gray's journey into the story of Sleeping Beauty, and she bumps into the Queen, who is quite an interesting character, even though in the versions that we've all read, she's not a very interesting character. But as we go through this, and they both are trying to figure out how to get out of their different dilemmas and how to move on in life, and what is happily ever after anyways, and very interesting conclusions. When was this written? I haven't seen in the library, and I have not gone to other sources, whether there's a third one coming. This was copyrighted in 2022. I could see that this book has a logical conclusion. It's possible that she could have another journey of some sort, but I don't know. I think in a way this has a very nice ending. If you read the other Splintered Spindle, I would suggest reading this one fairly quickly afterwards. I had about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, somewhere between the two. And I think that you could read these back to back. I do think that if you split them apart by too long, you're going to, because they're both quite short, I think that you might start to lose the whole reasoning behind Zinnia Gray's journeys in the first place. And there's quite a lot of information in the first book. So yeah, I would pony them up. Second book I read, I'm just bringing it to you because it's an airplane book. The X Hex by Erin Sterling. Now, and by what I mean by airplane book is you can take it with you, like to a family Christmas event, for instance, whether you get on a plane or not, and you just open it, read it. Not too much is happening. It's about a witch living in a town in America, and the founders of this town were from Wales, and there was a line of male witches and there was a line of female witches, and they put down what are known as ley lines, L-E-Y lines, and these are energy sources for magic, and they're supposed to have sort of grounding things that the witches need to have in order for power to continue, and they have to be refreshed every 25 years. And so there's a love story because male and female come together, male and female split apart. 9 years later, the ley lines need to be refreshed, and male and female come back together. And so there's good sex in here if you like a good sex. There's a couple of good sex scenes. I tend to skip over them. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm reading them by myself. I don't know. But in terms of plot, that's about it. It's, two people who thought they were out of love. Maybe they're still in love, but no, probably not. And just, that kind of romantic conflict back and forth. What makes this one a little bit different is that they're both witches, and that there's a bit more humor in it. It's fairly lighthearted. So I think you can pick this up and put it down fairly easily if you're very busy. And what I understand is that she has written multiple books for younger readers under the name of Rachel Hawkins. So I am going to do a little Google search and just see whether she's written anything that I enjoyed back in the days when I was reading a bit more young adults. Now, the other thing I've got going on my plate. Oh, what have we got? Okay. So this is just quickly. Last Night at the Telegraph Club is the next book for my one book club, my Woozles book club, and it is about pre-World War II, two young women who fall in love at a time when it's very difficult to be both female lovers, and one of them is Chinese, and like you can just imagine. And the other one that is for my other book club that's coming down the tubes is CloudCuckoo Land, and they're both kind of big books. Yeah, so I'm going to be busy this weekend trying to get those two done. And the other thing that I'm reading sort of betwixt and between is the third book in the Worldquake series. Gallo Glass is the last one in that series by Scarlett Thomas. And this is a great book for breakfast. Breakfast or bathtubs. You come down in the morning, you're not too awake, make your tea, your breakfast, sit there for a little while, just read a couple of chapters, and it's easy peasy. And I do enjoy the story. The characters are still good, and I think in this book we will start to see the supporting characters a little bit more. It starts off with Alexa, who is a friend to Effie Truelove, so I think that might be a slightly different point of view. And just to finish up the nonfiction theme, I did also read two knitting books. This one is Sweater Girls by Madeline Weston and Rita Taylor. 20 patterns for starlit sweaters, retro wraps, and glamour knits. And they're cute little sweaters. I think they're all, see if I can get you one that's really, they're named after the actresses of the time. So, and the models, of course, are dressed up in the period appropriate stuff. This is one of those books that is not size friendly, And I don't think, let me see, it goes up to fitting a bust that's about 40 inches. I don't consider that a large. Large to me is a lot bigger, but it's fun. And if you've got a pattern base that you like, you can take the aesthetic and go with it. The other one that I've really enjoyed is Knit, Fold, Pleat, and Repeat. Simple Knits, Gorgeous Garments by Nora Gahn. And I have tried one or two of her patterns before. Was I successful? I don't know. To me, they're a little bit too complex. I don't think that they were really up my alley at the time. Like, look at that one. That one's fun. I mean, I'd be interested to figure out how to do that maybe twice. Although I did, for one of my son's girlfriends many years ago, knit her a decahedron. That's a 10-pointed sphere or something like that. But there's some cute construction options in here. I don't know if you can see that very well, where it's not all knit just top down. There's sort of component parts to things and triangles intersecting, and yeah, so there's, and then this one's got a gathered sleeve. So if you like knitting, this is a fun eye candy book. And yeah, I got them both from the library. I do that periodically around this time of year. They're doing crafts for Christmas, and they've got these knitting books where you basically would have had to start 2 years earlier to get it done in time for Christmas. So I like to look at other people's aspirational disasters and say to myself, you didn't do that. Okay, the other thing I was going to tell you about, just to finish, is over this last 5 months or so, I've been helping a friend work on a play, as learning how to do the backstage managing and the upper, in the booth stage managing. And it's a Christmas pantomime. It's Red Riding Hood. It's cute. There's wolves. There's furry creatures. There's a crazy evil witch, a very evil witch. And of course, there's Red Riding Hood and her eventual sweetheart, Blue. It's just really a good little play. Well, about Friday morning, I guess it was, I got a phone call, and one of the actors had come down with COVID, and could I take on the role? And because I had been watching it germinate and come up to fruition, and I had been there for some of the technical rehearsals with the staging on the stage and everything like that, and it wasn't a huge role. Could I do that? And I thought, oh my God, that's insane. I haven't been on stage for over 40 years. And so I said yes. So at the end of this, I'm going to include a little picture of myself, if it works. And who am I? I am Toe Jam, a wolf of uncertain balance. You can interpret that how you like. But it was a good hoot. In the meantime, more and more actors are dropping like flies with COVID. So this Thursday's performance is canceled because there's just too many actors sick and not enough people to understudy. So I don't know how often the play will go on. It's really a fun play. So it's just going to be one of those little blips in history that really doesn't go down very well. So that's it for me. I hope all your reading experiences continue to be fun and adventuresome, and that you're having a really good time. Take care for now. Bye-bye.